Hello, everybody. It's my privilege to introduce to you, all the way from the south side of Chicago, the man, the myth, the legend, my Theo, your brother, the South Side Unicorn.
And what they're proposing, Romney wants to he said in the first 100 days, he's going to let the big banks once again write their own rules. Unchain Wall Street. They're going to put you all back in chains.
Hey, it's your boy Ken White, host of the Southside Unicorn Show, and we are back with part 2 of a very, very interesting chat. The chat is titled, Let's Chat About the Dreamer. We have had an interesting conversation in part 1. If you missed part 1, go ahead and go back, watch that first, and then jump into part 2. We have been very respectful to one another, though we all have varied opinions and viewpoints about a very important American, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. In the beginning of the show, which was part 1, I said we would not use the title Reverend. We're going to let you decide that at the end of the show. You can chime in and make your thoughts known at www.thesouthsideunicornshow.com. Go ahead and leave your opinions and chats there. Sure, you all have a lot to say. I look on the page, 246,000 people had something to say about the last show we did. So if I don't get back to you on that, just understand I do see them. I read everything. I simply don't respond to everyone. So we're back, and I have my esteemed panel of some of the coolest people I know. I'm just grateful that they're here. You know what I mean? And actually, when you look at this panel, ladies and gentlemen, this is America. This is who we are. So you couldn't have a better group of people to discuss the idea or the myth of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Now we're in the second half. Now we're about to get down to the nitty-gritty. Stephen, a.k.a. MAGA Hawk, you said what you said about Dr. Martin Luther King in part 1, that he's a Marxist, that, some of the stuff he's done has not been so cool for the African-American people. Where do you see us going into the election of 2024 and beyond? If what you're saying is true about Dr. King, but you didn't say you want to see him thrown out with the bathwater, that was Nick that said that. We'll be getting to you, brother. Where do you see us going in 2024 with this new conversation about an American icon, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.?
If you could provide a little clarity, like what exactly do you mean? Where do you see us going?
Okay. If we destroy or tear down, and Nick, I'm just having fun with you, so I don't think I'm being negative here. Nick says, throw the man out with the bathwater. Just be done with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He was a charlatan, a plagiarist, a philanderist. He was just a rotten apple. So why do we need this man trying to lead? Did I get you wrong, Nick? Did I get you wrong?
Spot on, Ken.
Okay, there it is. See, there it is. The man said I got him right. So with that kind of an idea, if that should take hold, do you see what I'm saying now? If that should take hold,
yes, absolutely.
What do you see going forward? I mean, because nonviolence is going to go with him, ladies and gentlemen. You got to realize that. You throw out the man that espoused nonviolence, what's left?
Well, here's the thing. I mean, I think the theory of nonviolence is, that in and of itself is another communist tactic. The nonviolence versus violence, you have the nonviolence, quote unquote, standing in front of people, yelling, screaming, but I'm not touching you. That is considered, quote unquote, nonviolent. You see that especially with the BLM movement nowadays, where they can get in your face, screech and yell and block freeways and all that. That technically is indeed nonviolent. So just because it's nonviolent doesn't mean it's it's something that's beneficial for your movement or beneficial for America at large. But at the end of the day, I think if we get rid of Martin Luther King, we're not doing anything terrible. We're not doing anything harmful at all. If we propped up people like Thomas Sowell, if we propped up people like Larry Elder, if we popped up people like Booker T. Washington and Frederick Douglass, I think Black America at large would be in a whole better place than we are right now. Instead of thinking at grievance, instead of, as Shadow Jackson said, we went from a trying race to a crying race. Instead of being people who espouse grievance and victimology and oppression and put on the sackcloth and ashes and cry and wail and beg the federal government to do everything, we would do for ourselves, as Booker T. Washington wanted us to do. We would do for ourselves. We would be fruitful, lay our bucket where we are, and move forward towards the future and doing something for ourselves. And people will see the benefit of what it is that we are doing and want to be a part of it naturally, instead of forcing people through integration to to be a part of what it is that we have going on.
And as I was listening to you, MAGA Hawk, aka Stephen, or aka Stephen MAGA Hawk, you know what I'm saying? Because they're both interchangeable. When you do like this, there's one secret about me. I'm always patriotic, and then you just turn it to the Hulk, right? Be like,
Yeah.
As you were saying that, I was remembering my childhood, and I'm sure Emery is remembering his. I grew up on the south side of Chicago, and there was a store called Jesse's Store. There was a tavern called Tank's Tavern. There was a cleaners called Jesse's Cleaners. All of it on a little corner in my neighborhood. And guess what? All those businesses were owned by Blacks. That was my community. That was what I understood. That's what I grew up with. You go over to the grocery store, and the ways Jesse worked it out was, if you were a little short on money, you could just write him on a piece of paper. I'll pay you next week. Hand that to him, and Jesse will slice you off some meat and take it on home wrapped up in paper. You know what I mean? So I understand what you're saying, that perhaps integration might not have been the best thing for everyone. It might not have been. I understand that the socialistic movement of integration and all this stuff might have been harmful, but at the same time that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was doing his bus boycott, there were Black-owned bus businesses. And I don't know if you all are aware of that, but there were Black-owned bus businesses having as many as 400 buses. Now, why is it that during the Dr. Martin Luther King bus boycott, why didn't these Black-owned bus companies come forward and start picking people up? Do you see what I'm saying? And as I was saying to you in the first part, Nick, that's what I'm saying. There's a duality to everything we're saying about Dr. King. Yes, there were Black-owned businesses, but yet I saw more people in cars picking the nurses up and the cleaning lady, so they didn't have to ride those buses. You see what I'm saying? And they would get them to their jobs. Where were these Black bus companies helping Dr. Martin Luther King get that done? And literally, they would have picked up a built-in clientele.
If I could just on that, I think the Montgomery bus boycott was one of the most successful things of the civil rights movement, because we showcased that we can do for ourselves if we just put our mind to it. The bus boycott went along well over a year, right? And the city lost, I think it was, in our money, about $30,000 a day, right? And $3,000 in their at that time. So when we look at the Montgomery bus boycott, it's actually ingenious. So we created our first Uber. We created the first Uber, right? And we had people picking up other people. We were circulating our money within the Black community, giving our dollars to our fellow neighbor for giving us a ride, getting bicycles and doing that sort of thing. So we showcased our own resilience. And finally, once the city lost enough money, they're like, okay, we can take this matter up again. So
my give up.
Yeah, exactly.
My give up.
So I think that was a great thing that we did.
Yeah, exactly. Means I think you can ride the bus again.
Yeah. And then we jumped back on the buses like a bunch of idiots.
Exactly. So I hope I didn't stop you from making your point. Is that your point on that?
Yeah, I think that was the best thing that we possibly could do for ourselves with Montgomery bus boycott. I think that was absolutely brilliant and successful and beneficial for the Black community.
To steal a word from the contributing factor that you have, that was a turning point in America. Hello. So now, Jessica, the mic is on you. What do you see going forward with this new, because Charlie Kirk was right about one thing. I won't say that Dr. King was a deity, or that we had deified him, but he was, and now that's not true as of this last Memorial Day of him. Now that we've dared to touch the veil of Dr. King, now that we've reached up there and tried to pull on it and tugging on it, where do you see us going? What do you see coming from this as an educator, as a professional, and a politician?
I think that's the question. To be honest with you, I think that's the question. I mean, we've had such a great discussion the first, from last week. What a great discussion on this. And now moving forward, that really is the question. Where are we going to go with this? How do we deal with this? Being an educator and certainly looking at this from that perspective, I'm going to take that hat first. We're taught he was the leader. He was the person who brought inspiration. He brought inspiration to the table on these issues. And so as the educator, and what essentially we were taught as educators to teach our children, was this same aspect of, leaders can inspire change. So we want to teach our children to be leaders, to inspire those kinds of changes. I think that we have to, well, okay, let's take a look at this. Let's just say, for the sake of when we're looking at education, that certainly we need to be truthful about what we're doing. But I think that we also need to, Martin Luther King said something, and it's something that kind of has always stuck with me, and is that darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. And I think we need to hold that true. I mean, I think it kind of goes back, Stephen, a little bit about what you're saying. We need to hold to that. We need to hold to, what are we putting forward? Are we just piling darkness on top of darkness? Or are we going to bring light to what's really happening here? And I think that just, that's just truly what the question is. And I think that sometimes maybe we're all going to have different opinions or our observations or perspectives of who this man is. We all do. But I think that the ultimate question is, in his, in Martin Luther King Jr.'s words, darkness cannot drive away darkness.
That's pretty profound. Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. As we quote excerpts from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., it's difficult for me, or should I say for even the layperson, to dovetail in all these other facets that are being brought up about him: plagiarism, this, that, the other thing, because we were fed a platitude of these type of profound witticisms from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And with that, I think in all fairness, at this point, we need to go ahead and go over here to Nick. Nick, the question still remains. If we throw the baby out with the bathwater, as you suggest we should, what do you see 2024 going forward? What world are we making with that?
Well, I think I kind of agree with Stephen in the sense that you need to kind of, I think for Black Americans and kind of their historical reckoning of Martin Luther King, I think they need to kind of reorient or reframe who their heroes are in that community. And I think that would require them to maybe educate themselves on their history. And like I mentioned earlier, I think there are people they can look to, people like Billy Lee, who is a close associate. I mean, he was Washington's slave, yes, but again, that would simplify it. He served with Washington on his campaigns. He was his footman. He was with him at the most critical points of the American Revolution. So to say he didn't provide Washington with some level of aid or comfort, and that their relationship, I think, isn't some kind of signifier of a kind of close, maybe often complicated relationship, but one that is close. And there's a level of understanding between white Americans and Black Americans that I think MLK greatly contributed to breaking some of that understanding. And I think if you look at the last 50 or 60 years, it's been very negative between our two communities, particularly in the 2020 riots. And I want to say this too. I think, like Mr. McClendon was saying, and I think Agnes was saying too, they talk about dividing people. Unfortunately, we're human beings. Race is a reality. I think and I don't think that's something we should hide from. I think, for example, they have a saying, Black is beautiful. I think Black is beautiful. White is right. Brown is all good. It's all okay with what you want to believe. And there's nothing wrong with being proud of your racial heritage. So I think to kind of run away from these questions, that's why we keep having tension, because I personally, and I'll just be honest, as a white person, it's like, hey, well, we're all united and we're not all divided. Well, it's kind of hard to tell me that when I'm seeing these out of proportion murder rates, black on white crime going on throughout the country. And I'm just speaking honestly as a white person, and I don't mean to, disparage or paint a whole community the wrong way, but if you're asking me to speak freely, that's affording me of the First Amendment. That's how I feel. And I'll just
Brother,
wrap it up.
this is your time. This is your time. This is what
Yeah,
you
and I'll just wrap it up and say, because I've said a lot on this, but with Dr. King, I've said a lot about him, but I will say this too. Just finishing up, I do believe, like I said, that everyone has a right to be proud of their ethnic or racial heritage, and I think as a white person, we have a right to be proud of our heritage as Europeans. And I think, Agnes, you'd agree. I'm not saying you have to jive necessarily with everything I'm saying, but you're from Hungary. Hungarians have a great past, a great history, one that I'm very familiar with. And as an American, I'm very proud of my Anglo-Saxon roots. I'm very proud of my Germanic ancestry. And I think as Black Americans should be proud of their ancestry. And I think rather than trying to, pick at each other all the time and say, well, George Washington was a slaveholder, or this, maybe we could just, acknowledge that these people are complicated figures, and in our own communities, they have different resonance. And I think maybe that would be the best place to leave it at the moment. And that's just kind of where I'll leave it at. And I don't know if that satisfies everyone, but that's just kind of my point.
Brother, you spoke your mind. And when you spoke your mind, I mean, I understand that some people are going to say, oh man, he's a racist. This man is not a racist per se, in the way that they want to say it, in a negative pejorative. If I'm not mistaken, if they thought you would be the first person to use the N word, you're actually the first person to use the W word. Am I right?
What do you mean by the W word?
The wigger.
Wigger. Well, yes, I am a proud wiggers. And if you look, wiggers are setting the culture. Jake Paul, Sam Hyde. So, we're out there. So I'm just saying, but like, on a truthful note, I mean, it really does make me mad, because, people say that to me too. It's like, well, how could you have these feelings on crime or George Floyd or Martin Luther King? Look, I can like music. I could like Future. I could like Kanye West, and I don't need to endorse the 1619 revisionist version of America. And that's just kind of where I think it's all part of the platter. So that's just kind of where I stand on it. And, that's just kind of how I view things, and that's just my stance. So that's
right.
That.
So, and Agnes, and I'm getting to you in just a second here, and Emily, but I got to ask you a question, Nick. Based on what you're saying, I don't want to title it segregationist. That's not the word I want to use, but I do hear some separatism in there, and that's okay. Tribalism is what I hear. So when you speak the way you are, and we're on the heels of the Super Bowl, I understand that at the Super Bowl, they're actually going to play the Black national anthem before the national anthem. Given what you're saying, that you believe in this separate but equal type of thing, what are your thoughts on that?
Yes, well, that is something I guess you could maybe call me a hypocrite here, but that is something I think I'm not a fan of. And it's just because I think, to be honest, this Black national anthem, just like the holiday Juneteenth, I don't feel like that's a genuine expression of positive Black feeling. I think that's actually more of a stick it to whitey anti-white sentiment, just to be honest. And I'm just being honest here. And because like I said, I view Blacks as a part of the American story. And I mentioned, there was Black soldiers in the Civil War. Again, maybe not as much as, I think some left-wing historians, we could debate that, but there were Blacks that fought in the Civil War. There were Blacks that were in the American Revolution next to Washington. A lot of Blacks did become loyalists with the British, but we could talk about these things. But there's a whole discussion, but nonetheless, the relationship's complicated. But my whole point is, I think Dr. King has actually done more to sow division between ourselves. And I also want to point this out too, and I'll just end on this. Dr. King and the civil rights movement actually had a very large impact on our immigration policy in this country, because during the civil rights movement, there was the 1965 Hart-Celler Act, which was also passed under the auspices of, we need to, show the Soviet Union that we're not racist, and we need to unite the world. And I think that's important, because if you look at the relationship between Black and white, there have been problems and there have been issues. And I think, how the hell are we going to cross all these bridges when we're adding new ingredients to the American melting pot, so to speak? You know what I mean? If we can't even let the Black and the white simmer and get a flavor there, when we add Mexican and Asian and this and that and all that together to where it's an incoherent mess.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, Nick. I hear you, and you're on a roll there. But you brought me into the segue to talking to Agnes. The illegal immigration, the piggyback of certain rights that were afforded or intended to be afforded to the African American people, the 13th, the 14th, and the 15th Amendments, which were basically hijacked by the socialist movement and bringing forth one of the most incredible illegal immigration systems I've ever seen in my life. That brings me to Agnes Gibney, an angel mom, dubbed so by President Donald J. Trump himself. Agnes, if we do change the memory of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. as we know it, what do you see going forward? How do you see that helping or hurting America?
You know, personally, I wouldn't change the image of Martin Luther King. It is what it is. History is done. You can't change what happened before. You learn from it. Personally, I think that Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton has done an incredible amount of damage to the Black community themselves. They exploited the Black community, and I despise them like no other. Yes.
Yep.
And that breaks my heart, honestly, for the Black community. And I would hope that someone like my friend Larry Elder would be an incredible voice for the Black community to educate, inform, and, and help them come out of where they are, because they have been oppressed. They just don't know how to get out of it, and don't have any means to get out of it. So little kids grow up with this hatred of police officers, hatred of whites, hatred of other races. And we have to stop doing that. We have to stop hating on each other, because we all bleed the same, and be more giving. And I don't think anybody should lose their heritage. Embrace your heritage where you come from. I will never forget and disown my country of birth. I am divided into three because my heart belongs in Brazil. I love the Latin culture. That's where I grew up. But I love and respect United States right now. Not so much with the immigration and the political stand that we are living. It's becoming very difficult for me to respect this country. And it breaks
Wow. Whoa.
yes.
Hold on for a minute. Let me just interject right there, Agnes. You are one of the most patriotic patriots I've ever known. I mean, you earned the right to be an American. You went through the testing, the waiting. You came into America the right way. Did I just hear you right? Did I just hear you right?
I am, as sadly as I feel about it, I have a tremendous disrespect for this country's government right now, because they are, it's a disgrace. We're swimming pretty much in socialism, and I didn't pledge allegiance to defend this country against foreign and domestic invaders, and shed blood for this country. And our politicians are not pledging that allegiance to this country, and it breaks my heart. And I'm feeling very divided right now, and I hate to say that. Maybe I'm in an emotional state right now, because in a week and a half, or on the 28th, would have been my son's 51st birthday. It's always a very, very difficult time, but I'm not the only angel mom. There were thousands of other victims out there, and our government doesn't care. And our children are 6 feet under, as in, and our government does nothing for it. I'm not asking for help, but when I heard that Biden wanted to give 500,000 to illegal aliens that were deported, what about the guy that killed my son? He was released from prison early and got deported. Why should he get 400,000?
I hear what you're saying. That breaks my heart. I mean, on so many levels. And those of you who are watching this show, you really need to make contact with Agnes. Agnes, can you tell them how to get in touch with you, please?
Yes, my email is angelmomagnes, AGNES, @gmail.com. I am on Facebook as Agnes Gibney, and also on Twitter as Angel Mom Agnes Gibney. I use my name. I don't hide behind anything. I support President Trump 1,000,000%, and he is the only solution for this country to be cleaned
at
up
this time. So yeah, my heart hurts, Agnes, when I hear what you say, and I want the American people to understand what must be going on in our country for a absolute patriot like Agnes Gibney to say the words that she said on this show today. I'm going to defer to you, Emory. The idea of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., do we keep him? Do we let it go? And if so, what do you see from 2024 going forward with that idea?
Okay, I have a couple of things to say about that. I think, first of all, we need to keep the idea of Martin Luther King going strong, because without it, look what would have happened in the Black community. And we see what happened in the Black community. They didn't follow his dream. We haven't seen things progress, but we've seen more people become dependent. We've seen more broken homes, more broken families. The civil rights movement has been turned upside down. Now, I want to say a couple things here. We talk about Martin Luther King being a bad apple, but what about, and because he was a socialist, or he may have gotten taken into socialism, but what about people like Barack Obama, who are avowed socialists? And not only that, but he also sides with Islam and everything else. Okay, so why aren't they considered to be bad apples? You know, and why is socialism good for them, but not good for Martin Luther King, even though I don't think that Martin Luther King was really a avowed socialist. And is it really Martin Luther King's fault that the Black community has not progressed? No, it's not his fault. It's mostly the Black people, because they have become dependent. I know scores and scores and scores of Black people who love being on welfare. They're always trying to figure out. They spend 24 hours a day
Wait,
on
stop.
the internet
Stop.
trying to find out ways to
Emory,
get
Emory,
free money.
Stop. And I understand everybody's going to get their say. That is,
You went off. That's what I'm talking
I
about.
know. You say, I'm getting myself together, guys. Hold on, wait. Give me a second.
Hey, I'm just telling it like it is. That's all.
Tell it like it is, brother.
You say they love being on the dole, on the system. Really?
That's right.
Oh my goodness.
And like I said, I know friends, relatives, and everybody else. That's all they do. And every time I talk to one of my relatives or some friends, or if I'm at a restaurant, or if I'm out and about, because I'm a politically motivated person here, I'm a community activist.
Oh,
so
you're
that's all I
definitely
hear.
connected.
I want to get. Well, can you tell me how to get this free, this, that, and the other? Now, I'm getting off topic a little bit, but the thing of it is what kind of position does socialism paint on America? It paints a very bad picture, because socialism never worked anywhere where it was ever tried. Same thing with communism. All it leaves behind is a trail of death and a trail of poverty and so forth, and dependency. It never works. And then, you got to realize too, Martin Luther King shined a light on America, but the switch was turned off by others who didn't like his point of view and couldn't make a profit off of what he wanted to do. So I'll say one more thing, that, it's okay to have pride in your ancestry and to be proud of who you are, but not to the extent where you put your country down and you don't want to protect and defend the Constitution of America. America is the greatest nation that ever appeared on the face of this earth. It has afforded more people freedom than any other country in the world. So why not go toward making America a great nation, us being together, united as one, and moving forward. And like you said, moving forward in 2024, we have to ask ourselves a question. What do Americans really want? The average American wants to go to work, wants to come home, wants to be with family. He wants to feed his family, or he or she also wants to live a good life. They don't want all this strife and this turmoil. They don't want this bickering back and forth about what leader was bad or what leader wasn't. We want to move forward and make each generation better and better than the previous generation. And that's what I can see. We need to keep this thing rolling, because Martin Luther King, believe it or not, brought a lot of inspiration to our predecessors, to your grandmother, to your mother, to your father. And then all of a sudden we want to cut this thing off and say it needs to be changed, and we need to go into DEI. We need to go into the 1619 Project. We need to go into critical race theory. The answer is absolutely not. We need to continue on in the movement toward equality, not equity.
Now that was well said, Emory. I wish it was something that I had said. Please forgive me for the jocular activity there, but I wasn't ready for that, brother. You brought the noise, because as Agnes was saying, the immigration, which sadly took the life of her son, and his birthday is about to come around in March 28th. Am I right, Agnes?
No, January 28th.
January 28th. My apologies on that. And this is a lot. You know, when you think that no matter which way we've tried to move this country, the true socialists, the true Marxists, the enemies of our republic have always glommed onto it and hijacked it and morphed it into what they needed. The 13th, the 14th, the 15th Amendments have been bastardized and used to bring forth an immigration that is going to, I don't know what's going to happen with that, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm hearing everybody here. Jessica, from the collegiate educational prospect, thank you for your input. Very sound, very awesome. I'm going to say, is the glass half full or half empty with you as far as your final words? Are you half full or half empty with where we are in this nation?
I am like Agnes. I'm very discouraged with what I see. I agree with you, Emerson, 100%. I mean, we have to move forward. And I have a thing on the back of my truck, and it's a picture of the American flag. And underneath it, it says, "This is my pride flag." Because I want us to be united. I want us to be united under one flag. I want us to come together. I don't care what color. As a Native American, that's my flag. That's my flag. That's my country. And we are all Americans, and we have to come together and move together. Okay. In that. And I think that when we look at his speech, his My Dream speech, it was that we, as whether it was Jewish, Protestant, whatever, that we could come together, hold our hands, and move forward. I think that was really the bottom line of that speech. And I think we don't want to throw that away. We would be wrong to throw that away.
That's absolutely right.
Let's get you framed right, Stephen. Stephen, half empty, half full. These are your last words as we wrap up the show.
Yeah, I'm half empty right now. The outlook of things, the prognosis doesn't look good, but I am still going to fight for America with everything that I got. This is the last bastion of hope. If this fails, where the heck do we go? I ain't going to China, right? Because I heard religious freedom ain't so good out there. I'm not going to to Mexico because I'm not trying to be ruled by the cartels. I'm not going to Canada where there's no two-way rights. I am staying right here in America. I'm going to fight for America. I'm going to bleed for America, and daggone it, that's what we're going to do. We're going to get our country back on track, hopefully, if we can. And if we're not, we're going to go down swinging.
Make America great again or bust.
That's simple. That's it.
Yeah. Nick, half empty, half full.
I agree.
Exactly. Nick, unmute yourself, brother.
Sorry. Yeah. No, I got the Make America Great Again hat. I'm half empty, but I'd like to be half full because I believe President Trump is accumulating so much momentum right now, and everything's just falling apart throughout the world. You see what's going on in the Middle East and Ukraine, all these other places. His leadership has just led to chaos and a deterioration of the world order. Our country's falling apart. If Biden wins again, I mean, it's obvious it's theft. I'll just leave it at that. But, I just think we all have to unite behind President Trump. He is the greatest American, I think, since George Washington. And I just want to say this before I go, I took a skateboard to the head for President Trump. I don't know if you can see that scar. Oh. Yeah, I take that with a lot of pride, though. They couldn't knock me out. So with the love of my president, love of my country, sustained me. So I'm going hard for President Trump. My third time voting for him. So I'm ready.
There it is. With no disrespect to that, Nick,
let's go.
You one of them hard white boys. You know what I'm saying? Skateboard ain't gonna stop you. You know what I'm saying? I feel sorry for the guy that hit you with the skateboard. To be honest, I don't want you to go to.
Probably got a broken wrist.
Exactly.
There we go.
You know what I'm saying? He's tough. He wasn't. How does Shaft say it in the Real Shaft with Richard Roundtree? He said, "Ooh, those some tough white boys." You know what I'm saying? So I got you. I got you, Nick. I want to thank all of you all for being here. Ladies and gentlemen, we did a cursory touch on the idea of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I left the title Reverend off on purpose, as you know, from part 1, and I'm leaving it off in part 2. I'm leaving it off because even myself, yours truly, I'm going to delve a little bit deeper. I read a paper where they said he even tried to say that Jesus Christ wasn't real. But as I read more into it, I understand what he was saying. The Lord Jesus Christ tells us to worship him in the spirit and not in the flesh. And Dr. King, sometimes people can go 40,000 feet over your head. He wasn't saying that there was no Jesus Christ. He was simply saying that the idea of Jesus Christ upon the resurrection was his spirit. And even that ended up being morphed and bastardized to castigate this great man. We have to be careful what we digest, what we take in, and how we put it back out. I am grateful to this esteemed panel and group of people. Couldn't have asked for a better group of people to discuss it. But for those of us, the lay people, when you get this information, when you see Charlie Kirk's show and his paper, when you see my op-ed on it, take it all in and find the balance in it. Don't go out there saying that, oh, Charlie Kirk is a racist and, you know, Charlie Kirk is now Charlie Kirk in the cracker factory, you know, even though my man Nick says he don't mind being called a cracker. You know what I'm saying? It's okay. It's all right. This is our country, as Jessica said, and my pride flag is the one that's behind my brother Stephen right there.
Amen.
The American flag.
Amen.
I look at it this way too. Charlie Kirk did the same thing that I did when I first began to study about Martin Luther King. I mean, went off the rails. I had a train wreck. And then I decided to research it and look at it closer and found out that, hey, a lot of what we hear about Martin Luther King is misunderstood, misinformation, and we need to do our research and come around and realize that this nation will be a lot better off with what he proposed than going around stabbing him in the back about the things that we hear as rumors.
Absolutely.
And that's what I was wrapping up on, ladies and gentlemen. We've run out of time. Emory, that was a well-put spot in there. Thank you. That's my point. And you see me pounding my desk. I made all this noise. Sorry about that, guys. That's my point. There's two gentlemen in this room right now that have gray hair. There's two gentlemen in this room that don't have gray hair. And we got two beautiful women with us. Those of us that you would call OGs, that would be me and Emory. We have a different idea about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. than you young lions do. Take him with you into the future. After all, the 22nd century is barely 65 years away. So please take Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. into the future. If you have to reframe him a little bit, okay, fine. But he did more good than he did harm. That's my opinion as the host of this show.
Amen.
There are those of you who are clearly going to disagree with that, and you'll have your time to respond because I'll send you the link to the show. There'll be hundreds of people that are going to join in and give you their, opinion of what you said. Feel free to interact with them at any given time. Again, as we wrap up the show, please let people know how to get in touch with you because this one's on its way into the can. Jessica, start with you.
Jessica Rutan. And my email address, I'm sorry, Ken, I didn't hear what you said.
Yeah, go ahead and show people, let people know how to get in touch with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm at J Rutan, RUTAN, Aubrey at aubreydog.com, AUBREYDOG.com.
Outstanding. Agnes, once again.
Yes, my email is angelmomagnes, AGNES @gmail.com. And I'm also on Facebook by the same name, Agnes Gibney.
Stephen?
You can find me on Instagram at Stephen Davis at 1770, at Stephen Davis 1776, and Twitter at Stephen D 1776. And you can find my email, Stephen.Davis at Lord have mercy, Stephen.Davis at tbhoughts.com. I'm gonna get it right.
That's all right. Hey, you know what? We're doing this naturally. It was just a conversation and a chat. So there it is. Emory, how do people get in touch with you?
They can get a hold of me on Twitter at KB9IBW. That's KB9IBW. They can get a hold of me on Facebook at Emory, EMERY, WMC. I also do a lot of writing and media appearances for Project 21, the Heritage Foundation, and Tea Party Patriots.
There it is. But don't talk to Emory if you want something for free because you ain't going to get it.
That's right.
Nick, how do people get in touch with you, brother?
That's funny.
Sorry about that. To get in touch with me, just go to my Instagram at nick.torres40, at nick.torres40. I do write on political events there from time to time and do some live streams, did book reviews, but I'm actually going to be taking a break from activism and things like that for the next year because I'm actually attending graduate school again. So I'm very excited about that, trying to pursue my master's degree in history and hopefully my doctorate with an emphasis on German, American, and Mexican relations in World War I. So it's kind of what I'm working on.
Congratulations and good luck on that, brother.
Thank you.
And you know yours truly. You can find me at www.thesouthsideunicornshow.com. Hey, listen to me. There's no place I'd rather be. There's nothing more I'd rather do than being right here doing this show for you. This is Ken Whitehorse of the Southside Unicorn Show, and we are out.